Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. It's August 13th, 2019 on a Tuesday afternoon, I believe. Yeah, 4:30 in the afternoon Eastern time, my friends. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon right across from me.
What's up?
How you doing, boss?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling myself just like Zeke right now. I'm eating chicken nuggets from McDonald's.
I hope Zeke's not eating McDonald's.
I mean, I don't know. He's been on that holdout for a while.
True. Today, we bring you our top position battles to watch and a little bit of a week one takeaway. Preseason, week one. I've been messing myself up all day with that week one thing. And I'm like, preseason week one.
It is kind of weird to say. I can't believe
it's weird to say. Preseason week one recap. Just some thoughts and some takeaways from those games. But first, check out our website at thefantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Twitter at the FFChamps. Instagram at the Fantasy Champions. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/the-Fantasy-Champions. Subscribe wherever you listen. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. Make sure you click the bell for notifications. Leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. Before we get to our week one recap, let's move into a news segment really, really quickly because that's the least... Well, I mean, I guess it's probably very important, but it's not very fun.
Well, you just like to spend 30 minutes on the news usually.
Yeah, it's true. Seahawks want to get Chris Carson more involved in the passing game. A report came out earlier today that they want to give him 50 targets. It's not a lot of targets, but hey, it's something for the Chris Carson truthers. Damian Williams' hamstring injury is good to go. He's returned to practice. I believe that was last Wednesday. So
you're crying right now?
Yeah, I'm pretty upset about that. Coach Ron Rivera said Curtis Samuel is, quote, light years ahead, unquote, of where he was as a rookie. It is also being stated by the coaching staff that he could be a breakout candidate this year. So that I don't know if that was the coaching staff, but it is what it is. So that should be interesting to watch with Curtis Samuel. I am very upset because Curtis Samuel was a 14th rounder, and then he was a 13th rounder, and then he was a 10th rounder, and now he's like the 9th rounder, and I'm not happy about it. How fast is he going to shoot up boards past DJ Moore?
He's actually 8th right now.
He's going to he's literally flying. He's literally going to pass DJ Moore.
I don't know. DJ Moore is flying
People
up
are
too.
Freaking crazy. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God. ESPN's Dan Graziano, don't know if I said that right, reports Steelers wide receiver Donta Moncrief sounds like the front runner, that's a quote, for a starting role opposite Juju Smith-Schuster. So that was reported last week, I believe.
Who reported that?
Dan Graziano from ESPN.
Okay.
Probably a beat reporter for the Steelers. Speaking Thursday, Coach Andy Reid replied, "We'll do that here," when asked if he'll use an RBBC, running back by committee approach, this season. That was the nail in the coffin to Damian Williams almost. But they'll probably not do that and ruin my life. So there's that. But he has stated that he wants to. He was talking about the Eagles and how they before. I don't know, who was the running back when he was
LaShawn
there?
McCoy.
It wasn't
and Darren Sproles.
Oh, was it LaShawn McCoy?
He was for a little
LaShawn
bit.
McCoy that
yeah.
old? Oh, God, I feel like an old man. Anyway, Andy Reid was referring to his old running back situation in Philadelphia and how he used a split back situation.
He had a lot of running backs.
Running back by committee approach, and he said that we'll do that here in reference to the Chiefs. I've also heard reports that he's very frustrated with Damian Williams and the fact that he had a hamstring injury and all kinds of stuff. So that should be interesting to see as the preseason goes along. Keep an eye on it because a lot of people are going to buy second round Damian Williams and he's going to burn people very badly. Antonio Brown. I just quickly want to go over this entire news story. This is a disaster.
Yeah, this is very...
I'm almost staying away from Antonio Brown at this point just because he's a mess. So he had his foot injury, which I believe we talked about. He walked into I don't think we talked about this part, but he went into a cryo. I can't remember what it's called. Cryogenic.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
He walked into a chamber that gets really cold without the proper footwear, and he got his feet frostbitten.
Which, first of all,
which is completely stupid.
yes.
I love you, Antonio Brown, but that wasn't the smartest move. So then apparently he went, quote, this is where the weird reports started coming out. He went radio silent, is what they said. That he wasn't talking to the Raiders, similar to how he wasn't talking to the Steelers. And I was like, this is not happening again, is it? And then I guess this whole situation came out that Antonio Brown was pissed off at the Raiders because they were making him wear a new version, like a improved version of the helmet. So this year, you're only allowed to wear a specific version of helmet that's 10 years old or newer. Mm-hmm. So his helmet is now like I think 11 something years old, and so or the style of helmet that he uses is 11 years old. So he can't use it anymore. So he got mad at the Raiders when they were trying to tell him use the right helmet, right?
Right.
So apparently, just to quickly go over the story, he said, I'm not going to wear that helmet. He made a big scene about it, walked out in protest, and then the next day he came in to somebody from, because while he was saying this, he said, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady don't have to wear the new helmet. Why do I have to wear it? Because Tom Brady and Rodgers don't like to wear the new helmets either. So he said that in reference, and then they sent a picture of Aaron Rodgers wearing the new approved helmets to Antonio Brown saying, he's wearing the helmet, you can too. So he came back next day of practice, totally fine. He was happy. Next day he came in, or a couple weeks later they said, he came in with his old helmet from the Steelers, manufactured, painted silver with a weird-looking version of the Raiders logo on it.
Oh, gosh.
And tried to practice in it.
I don't want to say he sounds like a psychopath.
He does sound like a psychopath. So he said, no, I don't want to practice in it. And then that's when the feet situation happened in the cryogenic chamber. I said it right. And then he apparently stopped talking to the team, and he was pretty pissed off about his stupid helmet.
You know who Antonio Brown sounds like?
A teenage girl.
A teenage girl, Antonio Brown, and Kyrie Irving.
That's true.
All three of them.
Yeah, very much true. So through this whole process, he told the Steelers, he told the Raiders and the NFL that he would not play football again if he wasn't allowed to wear his helmet.
Yeah, I heard that, and I was just laughing.
So
imagine if you're a Steelers fan listening to that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of GIFs that you could use for that in celebratory fashion. So he said that, and then he appealed to the NFL, and basically what he said is that if he plays football, which he's going to, don't worry everyone, he lost the appeal and he's back at practice and he's fine. But he said to the NFL, he said, if I wear this new helmet and I get some kind of CTE or concussion because of it, you guys are liable. That's what his lawyer said to the NFL in his appeal. So it was obviously denied. So he's not allowed to wear his helmet.
Yeah.
So he's just gonna suck it up. I mean, he literally got himself traded from the Pittsburgh Steelers because he wanted to make money, and then he was gonna void his contract by not showing up. Way to go, Antonio Brown. He's on the field. He's practicing. He's fine. So if you really do love Antonio Brown, you want to draft him, you shouldn't have any problems. But this is like a big, fat, yellow, red flag that
if you didn't already have
on your draft board.
If you didn't already have flags around Antonio Brown being traded to the Raiders, now this, he went from, either the best receiver in fantasy or the second best.
It's insane.
To outside the top 5, and now he's like a middle third-round pick right now.
It's absolutely
late
insane.
third-round pick in some drafts.
Yeah. The NFL suspended Antonio Callaway 4 games for violating the league's substance abuse policy. In other news, Rashad Higgins looked pretty good in the Browns preseason game, so he's probably going to take the 3 spot from Antonio Callaway.
Yeah.
Not that matters to anyone because Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham are there.
And Njoku.
This is sad news. Theo Riddick will miss 6 to 8 weeks with a fractured shoulder after he got released and then went to the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, that kind of
blows. The Athletics' Matt Barrows projects Jerick McKinnon to open this 2019 season on injured reserve. That is very much expected to happen at this point, which is unfortunate for Jerick McKinnon.
We've said this a few times on the show, but it really is sad.
Yeah,
like
the
dude
yeah,
left Minnesota because he wanted to be the lead back. San Francisco gives him all the money. Here's your chance, kid. Go out and prove it. Tears his ACL before the first game.
So unfortunate.
Still hasn't played a game yet in a 49er uniform, and now we're going to have to wait probably until week 6, week 7.
Just to see him play.
Yeah.
49ers coach, and other 49ers news, 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan insists Dante Pettis must compete for the starting role. There's also been news out of camp from beat reporters saying that, because, the beat reporters love to post little videos from training camp.
Yeah.
They're saying that Dante Pettis is having a bad camp and that the coaching staff's not happy with it, and that's why he has to, quote, compete for a starting role. Dante Pettis will be a starter, and oh, boy.
Listen, I trust the beat writers.
Okay. I don't.
If they say, well...
Mike Reese posts a lot of videos of Tom Brady, and I don't...
If they say someone's good, I don't trust them.
Yeah.
If they say someone's bad...
Yeah, no, that's
then
true.
I do kind of trust them.
It's concern. It definitely is concerning. There have been people that have had him as a breakout player this year.
Including me.
Including you and both of us.
Yeah.
And... I don't think this hurts. Dante Pettis is talented, and I think he's better than anyone on that wide receiver core. Just because someone has a bad camp doesn't mean they suck. You know what I mean?
Let's see how the preseason goes.
Yeah, we'll see how because we still got 3 weeks until this
right. There's
kicks
still
off. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's still time for him to fix everything and make it work. But does that mean you should run away from Dante Pettis as an 8th or 9th round pick? Heck to the nah. Draft him all day. But just be aware that this situation is proceeding, and if your draft is in 2 weeks, and this is still happening, he might be a guy that you may want to avoid. But as of right now, I'm still drafting Dante Pettis. T.Y. Hilton believes he's had his best training camp of his entire career.
Oh boy,
that's interesting.
I feel like every other player would say the same thing.
That's true. Devontae Parker says that every year. The wide receiver one of the offseason. According to Yahoo's Tariz Pilar, I don't know if I said that right. First round tight end TJ Hawkinson will likely begin the year as the Lions' second tight end behind Jesse James.
That is crazy.
Yep, a little bit crazy. That just goes to show you that he's probably not progressing the way that they want to. It also shows you that a large, jacked white man doesn't always equivalent to Gronk.
It doesn't?
No.
Why'd we use a 10th overall pick on him?
Yeah. It was like a 7th.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
NFL Network's Jane Slater reported that Dak Prescott is seeking $40 million annually. That is also being reported as not true. So Dak Prescott's side said that is not true.
Hold on.
$40 million. Wait. You know what's funny?
Wait.
You're ridiculous. I guess the Cowboys... So, you know what's even stupider about this? Is that the Cowboys offered him $30 million a season to play quarterback for them. And he's good. But he's not $30 million good.
I mean, I get, the whole thing is, if you're the guy available on the market, you'll get paid, right?
Yeah.
It's the next person up. But, dude, you're asking for $40 million a year?
Yeah, that's true. It's not. It's ridiculous.
Even the biggest Dak Prescott.
The amount of money that Jerry Jones is about to fork over to Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, and Ezekiel Elliott is freaking insane.
It is. It's ridiculous. And
it's crazy.
Even the biggest Dak Prescott truthers, do you think they would say he's a top 10 quarterback?
No. I mean, I even like Dak Prescott for 2019. I think he's a sleeper quarterback. Not a lot of people he's when he is on his game and they have Zeke and Amari Cooper, he's a good quarterback and he can do stuff for fantasy football. But do I think he's a?
Would you?
If he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, he's 10.
Yeah, I don't even think he's top 15.
Wow,
he's 18 or 19.
Derek Carr or Zach Prescott. Oh God, stop now.
Probably Dak, but it's Dak. But I'm not paying either of those guys $40 million.
$40 million
There's like
a year.
there'd be like three or
That's
four
like-
quarterbacks in the league that'd pay $40
That's
million.
disgusting. It literally is so stupid. Why would they do that?
Because it's either Dak or
I gotta say the
Nobody.
Twitter game was strong with the Avengers memes and Thanos, and it showed like Iron Man walking across like a desolated map, and Thanos is standing there.
Hey, how you say
and he's-
Thanos instead of Thanos?
Whatever, bro. Whatever.
You get on
sitting
me with
there-
Rashad Penny.
Yeah, that's true. He's sitting there and he says, "Here we are again. You always come back." And they literally said, Tony Romo to Jerry Jones. I was like, that's clutch. I don't know how this affects fantasy football, but I thought I was just going to note that Dak Prescott wants $40 million.
Because it's crazy.
Yeah. Falcons coach Dan Quinn said Devonta Freeman has had an outstanding offseason. Finally, after 2 years and a lot of first round picks, Devonta Freeman might play a football game. And the final piece of news we have is MMQB, Monday Morning Quarterbacks, Albert Breer reports Panthers. This is crazy. And it's getting me personally into the hot take that I shouldn't step into. But he is reporting that the Panthers are trying to find a backup right now who can ideally, quote, take, quote, a lot, unquote, of work away from Christian McCaffrey's short yardage and goal line.
That hurts my soul to hear. It actually makes sense though. Like if
it does. For the team, it makes sense.
Right, if you were
fantasy football, it crushes souls.
Right, but like if you were like the head coach,
all those people already did their
your
drafts.
best player is Christian McCaffrey, right?
Yeah,
clearly.
Yeah, clearly.
Wouldn't you want him? And he's kind of a tiny.
He's going
like, he's
to be
ripped,
used.
but he's a stature wise, he's kind of like let me
Small.
see, like
225, 8.
How tall is he though?
I think he's 5'8".
Right, 5'8".
Something
So
ridiculous.
wouldn't you want like a big like C.J. Anderson type
To
guy
bowl
to
it
go
into
with
the
him?
end zone, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
To just for health concerns, for
Didn't they
long-term concerns.
already try the CJ?
They did. That didn't end well.
I think last year they tried so hard to find somebody, and it ended up with McCaffrey. Now I was thinking about this today. Now if you're worried about drafting Christian McCaffrey, thinking he's going to be a bust, don't be stupid. Draft him. I'm concerned about him as in a couple of my leagues. I think I'm in a number 2 or number 3 pick. So like, I'm concerned about the fact that if I'm sitting there thinking about drafting Christian McCaffrey, this is the box that I put it in. What are the 3 areas? In a half PPR setting, you score fantasy points on receptions, yards, and touchdowns. Those are the 3 totals. If he gets less snaps, that means he's going to get less like opportunity, which means less receptions and less work in the passing game. I don't think like last year in 2017 he had 113 targets. In 2018 he had 124 targets. So I mean, there's not much difference.
I think he's like no matter what he's gonna like if they do end up signing another running back, he'll still get like 100 plus targets.
The difference last year between 2017 and 2018, at least as far as catches was concerned, he had 107. There was only 11 catch difference. It was because he went from a 70% catch rate to an 84% catch rate in one jump. I mean, I think that's going to regress, so he'll get less catches. I think I think 90 catches is where I would see him at. Like, that's a reasonable spot. That gives him 45 fantasy points. I think he gets, because of that regression there and the less work on the goal line and in the running game, he only gets, instead of getting 1,900 yards, he gets 1,700 yards, which is 170 fantasy points. So what's 45 and 170? 205? Was that 215?
215.
So you take that away, and then he only had 13 touchdowns last year. So this is the big one. I think he's only going to get 7 to 8, which puts him at the 36 to 42 range of fantasy points. So he's going to see a 60 to 75 point decrease from last year, which puts him at 250 to 260 fantasy points, which is still a top 5 finish. It's like 5 or 6, which is where I have him on my rankings when Melvin Gordon's not holding out. But I think that's where Christian McCaffrey's going to finish this year. And if people are drafting him at the second pick,
he's good. I've been doing a few mock drafts lately. He's going number 1 in a lot
of drafts. And I think it's going to be one of those things where, like, I was doing some research today in previous years who the first running back off the board was. And only 1 year has that worked out over the last 5. And it was Todd Gurley from 2017 into 2018. Or 2018 drafts, people drafted Todd Gurley and ended up being number 1. So if you're drafting Christian McCaffrey 1, or 2, that's a little bit concerning for your fantasy team if he gets a reduction. Now, I think, like I said, I think 250 is where he is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a very real possibility. It's like the Mahomes truthers, is that there's a specific way that Mahomes plays, right?
Yeah.
And he can play out of his mind. He's gonna have a top 6, top 5 season guaranteed. The question is, can he get back to the efficiency that he was last year? I say no, because that isn't repeatable. And I think it's the same thing with McCaffrey. His efficiency, I'm not sure it's repeatable for him in 2 straight years. But I do think that his floor is 250 fantasy points.
Right.
And if he goes back to what, say, because the people who believe in Christian McCaffrey are like, more targets, more receiving yards, more rushing yards, more touchdowns. Like, if he scores 15 touchdowns and he gets 1,900 yards again, he's the best running back in fantasy football.
Right.
That's not going to happen. So that's kind of my thing, is I think he's going to regress in a lot of categories this year.
I mean, you're talking to a big McCaffrey truther here. And Mahomes truther, so you're right in my ballpark. But I don't really disagree with you.
If you could have Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, and Patrick Mahomes on the same team again, you'd do it.
Well, I mean, if I had those guys on my team, I wouldn't lose to anybody.
No,
again.
That's true.
I was in a very special situation last year.
Yep.
Anyway,
that's like my Cowboys. I mean, my Zeke Elliott, Todd Gurley year 2 years ago.
But you lost in the championship.
Shut up.
Anyway,
super teams don't win it all.
What I would say is, if you're gonna, I'm a huge McCaffrey fan. I wouldn't take him number 1 unless it's full PPR.
What about 2 or 3? Let's say in a perfect world, Ezekiel Elliott is healthy. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott's not holding out. Melvin Gordon's not holding out. Where would you take McCaffrey?
4.
Okay. Ahead of Melvin Gordon, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. See, my rankings with those 2 guys not holding out are Saquon, Zeke, Kamara, Gordon, and then McCaffrey and Gurley. 6, which is not.
That is, wow.
Someday I'm going to have to defend myself, and I hope it's after Todd Gurley has a great year on the Todd Gurley train. Anyway, that'll do it for the news. Keep an eye on Christian McCaffrey. If you're taking 1, 2, 3, or 4 in drafts, definitely consider other options if you can, because there's got to be a bust in the top 4. Got to be one.
Le'Veon Bell right now.
Yeah, it's true. We're gonna. Do you want to talk about the preseason, or I'll just go over really quick takeaways?
Just go over.
So I watched every preseason game. Game Pass
that
is a magical thing. This is not an advertisement for NFL.com's Game Pass, but definitely check it out. So I just noticed, I looked over every single game. I noticed a couple of things about, there's 2 pages of notes about players.
That's a lot.
Ridiculous. All right, so the first thing I watched live, I was at a Red Sox game and I'm watching the Browns preseason game live on my phone. It's freaking ridiculous. More people watch preseason football than they did baseball.
Regular season baseball, yeah.
I'm like, isn't that ridiculous? So I was watching the Browns, and Baker Mayfield scorched.
Did.
He came out and he was he threw one pass to Antonio Callaway, and then it was almost a pick. That was the first play. And then it was he threw the ball 12 yards down the field, quick play, 10 yards down the field, quick play, 15 yards down the field, quick play, touchdown. I was like, holy crap, the Browns just ripped them apart. So that was exciting. The one thing I noticed on that drive, I only watched the first 5 to 6 minutes of every game, only because I just wanted to see the starters.
Yeah. You only really need to see the first few.
I noticed that the Browns utilized Nick Chubb a little bit in the passing game, and he didn't look inefficient. So
okay,
it was actually. I mean, maybe it was the play call and the way they drew it up, but he looked pretty good. I noticed David Montgomery was spicy hot flames, and Mike Davis looked like a garbage can.
Wow.
Yeah. Miles Sanders looked like hot garbage.
Did he? Because I didn't see anything with the Eagles.
3 attempts for 3 yards, and stats don't really matter in the preseason, but he just didn't look good. You only get 3 yards on 3 carries. I mean, I think he had 1 catch in the passing game, but I don't remember exactly what it was. And then Jordan Howard looked like Jordan Howard. Arcega-Whiteside had a one-handed catch in that game.
Oh, really?
It was straight down the field, stuck his hand out. I was like,
Random players
maybe
do
next
random
year.
things.
Yeah, random players do random things. He was actually, I think he was a second round pick. Anyway, so Kyler Murray 6 for 6. Oh no, he was 6. I think he was 6 for 7. Daniel Jones was 6 for 6. I'm not going to talk about that, but Kyler Murray was 6 for 7, and the one pass that he didn't complete was not even an incompletion. The guy just stepped out of bounds. He like tapped his foot on the out of bounds marker and then came back in and tried to count the ball. Yeah, that's an incompletion. I did write Nick Chubb looks Zeke-like. And that's a hot take. But
that is a hot take.
It's preseason, so I'll keep that. Eckler, he ran well in the game. Was most likely going to be the Melvin Gordon replacement, but I fumbled. He GG'd.
He does that even last year in the few games Melvin Gordon got hurt. Mm-hmm. He was like all over the place in the field and was like fumbling, and I think he had a few fumbles.
So. I will say, because I'm an honest fantasy football analyst.
Okay.
I don't know what word I was looking for there, but that's what came out. Lindsey did look better than Royce Freeman in the game on a play-by-play basis.
Wow.
But Freeman did look like he had more breakout. He had like 4 runs the entire game, and they were all like 4 yards apiece. They weren't great. And then he had a 50-yard run. So if you look
Royce Freeman?
Yeah, Royce Freeman. It was like the hole was as wide as the ocean, but but he did have a 50-yard run. He looked good in the open field, and he was good pass.
He does seem like
it looked like Philip Lindsay was more prepared to play than Royce was.
Okay,
which is not good if you're trying to win the number 1 job. I don't think we talk about them today on the show. And then Penny looked okay on the ground. He was good in the passing game. Chris Carson didn't even play. Chris Godwin looked impressive running routes. James Washington had an incredible stat line and was all over the field the entire game. Ronald Jones looked a lot better than Peyton Barber.
That's
even
good
though the
to
stat
know.
line
That's
didn't
very
show
good
it.
to know.
And Jameis Winston looks accurate, and his decision-making looks a lot better than it was last year, which is also good to know. I also want to note my mans, Darwin Thompson. Alexander Madison also had a good game. So I like to...
Your sleepers.
My sleepers. I'm going to write... every week, I write down like a bunch of notes on players that play well and succeed. I suggest you people do the same. I will share my thoughts on the preseason. There's not a lot you can take away from the preseason besides the fact that you can't look at stat lines and say, hey, this is going to be...
Yeah, you can't just look at stats in preseason.
And be like, oh yeah, this guy's going to be really good.
To be honest, with preseason, I think there's things that you can take away in the preseason.
Right.
But overall, there's not a lot.
There's not a lot that you can take away.
Right.
Definitely.
There's a lot of flakes and oh, look at this big play by this random player that's going to get cut.
There's a lot of good, the Patriots had this guy, Jacoby Myers, caught 2 touchdowns, 86 yards, looked really good. He's like the 4th, 5th wide receiver on the depth chart. Sorry, people. Yeah. But there are guys that shine in the preseason, earn themselves wide receivers that earn themselves a 3rd spot on the roster and then end up breaking out later down the road. Yeah. So, but there's a lot of good things to see. I think it's just, for me, it's utilization. The first drive for the Broncos, Philip Lindsay had four touches, and Royce Freeman had 3 touches first drive. So that shows you a little bit about maybe what they're going to do. The Chiefs didn't even the Browns didn't even use Kareem Hunt, which I was kind of pissed about. But
right. That is surprising.
I don't even think he was dressed. I think he was.
Oh, maybe he's
been dealing with hamstring injuries.
Oh, okay, all right.
And then Ronald Jones had Peyton Barber had 4 carries. Ronald Jones had 3. So you could either look at that as these guys are trying to earn their jobs. They're trying to figure out who the guy is going to be, or you can look at that as okay, this is how they might utilize these guys offensively. And so when I look at preseason games, I look at you have to watch the actual, don't look at the stat lines, watch the actual games, see if the guys can actually play. Like David Montgomery, I don't care that he had 80 yards and a touchdown and looked good in the, stat line looked good. I don't care about that stuff. I care only about how he actually looked against real NFL talent. And he was efficient. He was hard to bring down. He has good ball carrying vision at the line of scrimmage. He looked really good as a running back and somebody that could succeed, which is why he's flying up draft boards. Yeah. Got a lot of work to do, but I think he looked really good in the preseason. That's what you're looking for. A guy like Darwin Thompson. I mean, the guy is like, I don't know if you guys saw floating around the video of him breaking tackles on like a 6-yard run.
I did.
But it looked like he was like eating people's souls as he was running down the field. Like, he's fast and he's strong. And like, he looks like a running back that can be a success in this league. Mm-hmm. And as a 6th-round pick, it's going to take him a little while to get into that.
Did he remind you of McCaffrey at all?
A little bit.
Because that's just when I think of like, because he's like what, like 5'8", like he's ripped.
He's a guy, and I don't want to. Do we talk about the Chiefs today? I don't even remember.
I don't think we do.
But he's a guy that reminds me. Darwin Thompson reminds me.
Here's a guy.
First round arm talent. Darwin Thompson is a guy that can come in. Like you'll probably see the season start with Duke Johnson and Damian Williams. Like, it'll probably be those two guys. But I think at some point this season, like if Darwin Thompson wins the 2 job and Damian Williams gets a hamstring injury and misses 2 games, you could see Darwin Thompson come in and light up the field and be like this really good running. Basically do something that forces Andy Reid to be like, oh, okay, we got to play this guy. It's kind of like
what Damian Williams did last year.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Right. But they just roll with it. So I think that's worth a look. Because I think if it doesn't happen in 6 weeks during the regular season, then he's a waiver wire guy. But I was hoping, I mean, hey, best case scenario, wins the job outright. Week 1, he's the starter. I mean, the running back that starts in the Chiefs' offense is going to be good.
Yes.
It just depends on which one it is.
Right.
Like everyone's like, oh my God, Damian Williams talent. I'm like, he's not talented. He's just he's in Andy Reid's system. He was a 3rd-string running back last year.
He's not talented though. He's not like a high-end
are the largest
superstar
Chiefs
talent
sympathizer.
I'm just saying you're acting
Trust me,
like
I love
he's like
Kareem Hunt like more than.
Is that wise? Because poor Damian Williams stole
my man's
role.
Well, actually, they fired him, but
yeah,
they cut him. So let's move away from this. That was just some thoughts from the preseason, some notes we had. Let's move into our top position battles. We're going to talk about 3 running backs, 3 wide receiver battles, 3 running back battles. Let's get started. So number 1 on our list, we have Rashad.
I can't do it.
Penny. We just said Rashad like on repeat for like 5 minutes. Rashad Penny versus Chris Carson. Who you got?
Well, I think...
Hey, let's start off with this. Who do you think's going to win the job?
Yeah.
And who do you think should have the job?
Okay. I think Chris Carson will have the job. I think Rashad should have the job.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, hot take. I don't know if... Oh, so I wouldn't go...
I'm not sure that's like a real hot take.
It's not a crazy hot take. I'm not necessarily sure if he should have the job, I should say. Mm-hmm. I think he should have a fair chance against Chris Carson. I'm not sure he will. I think it's kind of already set in stone that Chris Carson will be the starter.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to see in the preseason, though. But I think no matter what, both guys will get carries. Just like last year, the Seahawks ran the ball the most out of any team in the league.
Right.
And they had Chris Carson, Rashad Penny. And Mike Davis. This year, Mike Davis is gone. I can easily see Chris Carson getting like 15 to 20 carries a game, and then Rashad Penny getting around like 10.
Yeah.
And if that happens, then both guys could be utilized, but Chris Carson would clearly be like the guy.
So for me, I think there is. I mean, they ran the ball. I think it was on average 30 times a game last year, which is crazy. I mean, you could honestly.
Does that include Russell Wilson like scrambling and like counting as a rushing attempt?
He doesn't do that much.
I know he doesn't.
He scrambles, but he doesn't run
like
out
a few times a game.
I'll look it up, but
because if that doesn't include that means Chris Carson
and Rashad Penny. Like this is the way that I could see it. This is the way that I could see it because Rashad Penny. I don't want to speak out of my butt. Rashad Penny is a good pass catching back. He's a better pass catching back than Chris Carson.
Yeah.
So he's going to get pass catching work more than like they talk about how they're going to get Chris Carson 50 catches this year and how they believe he's going to catch the ball more and all this garbage, right? They can say whatever they want, but the reality is they're going to use the more talented pass catcher, and I believe that's Rashad Penny. Chris Carson, I think, is the better running back, like on the ground at this point. I think Rashad Penny is probably going to pass that.
Okay.
My point is, I think that you're going to get I think it's going to be like 16 to 17 carries a game for Chris Carson and about 13 to 14 a game.
Ooh, so you think it's going to be
Rashad
pretty much
Penny.
a split backfield?
Almost, pretty close. That's what they did last year when they had Mike Davis. When all three were healthy, it was like 6, 7, 9. It's like ridiculous.
They do like using all.
So, but like I think if they do that, what to me what the difference is if Rashad Penny gets more touches in the passing game, it'll equal out for both of them.
Yeah, I like both running backs, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, I don't hate
but
either.
I think Penny's just more of like Chris Carson. They've compared him. One of the reasons it's so called that Seattle likes him so much is because Chris Carson reminds them of Marshawn Lynch because of the way he runs the ball. He's very aggressive. He's very like putting my head down and run through you. He's got a lot of energy, all this sort of thing. But I think Penny, like you said, he's better in the passing game. I think he's just a more well-rounded back. He was also a first-round pick, I believe. Mm-hmm. So I feel like in the long run, at least, Seattle's going to want to use Penny more than Carson.
In the modern NFL, guys like Rashad Penny work better than guys like Chris Carson. And
I do like Chris Carson.
I like Chris Carson too. I initially 5 months ago had him on my bus. 5 months ago, I had him on a bus list.
It's because you won me the fantasy championship. To be honest, it kind of did.
A little bit bitter. No, I just didn't. I thought Rashad Penny was going to be the guy that comes in. It just doesn't seem like. Here's the thing. So I'll answer my own questions in answering yours. I think that Chris Carson's going to win the job, and I agree with you. I think Rashad Penny should have the job.
Okay.
I think that the Seahawks' love of the comparison of Chris Carson to, Marshawn Lynch is their love of that connection is so like deeply rooted that they'll probably just stick with Chris Carson out of stupidity. But this is also the system that, Pete Carroll runs. Mm-hmm. The guy that was there when Marshawn Lynch was there, as far as offensive coordinator was, is Darrell Bevell, and he's not there anymore. He's OC on another team. They fired him.
Right.
When they fired him, this whole split back crap started happening, and I think it's mostly like on the shoulders of Pete Carroll. So for me, when I look at this, I think they're going to split, like I said, 16-14. If there's 30 rushes in the game between the running backs, I think it's going to be 16-14, 17-13, and I think Penny's going to equal it out in the passing game. I think I like Penny's value more than Chris Carson's.
Yes, I agree with you.
Chris Carson is, what is it, a 6th round pick right now? 5th round
He's
pick?
actually, hold on, I'll double check, but I think he's actually moving up.
It's unfortunate. Like
it's right when you like somebody too.
He's a guy I like in the 5th or 6th round right now. I wouldn't take him if it was like
he's the first pick of the 5th round.
So yeah, I would take him in the 5th round. If I'm there at one, if I'm there at 501, maybe.
Would you take him over Mark Ingram?
No. Hold on, I can tell you for sure. I can tell you for sure.
It's close, but I wouldn't. I would take Mark Ingram if I was in that spot and needed a running back.
I have Mark Ingram 23 on my rankings and Chris Carson 24.
Hey, so you would also take Mark Ingram. It's close. Obviously, they're right there, but
I like where Rashad Penny is going, and I think he's a little bit.
See, that's where I agree with you 100% too.
I think he has a lot more value.
The 8th round, middle of the 8th round, so almost 9th.
Like, see, I think Chris Carson too. Like, because you're dealing with almost an RBBC in Seattle. Mm-hmm. I think the thing for me is like looking at that and saying, okay, both guys are probably going to have decent years. Like, you might see low-end RB2 potential out of both of them. You know what I mean? Chris Carson can probably, if they give him more work, could be an RB1. A high-end RB2. But I think Penny's ceiling is like mid-range RB2 if he's good. And so for me, it's hard to kind of discern it, but I would rather have a 8th round Rashad Penny sitting on my bench than rely on Chris Carson as my flex as a 5th rounder,
or even RB2 for some
or
teams,
even as RB2 for some teams. So like that's hard for me to justify.
I get what you're saying, yeah.
So I would definitely take, in my personal opinion, I would take Rashad Penny in this position battle.
Yeah.
I think that Chris Carson is obviously going to win the job, but I think it's going to be an RBBC.
Yep, I agree with you on that.
Let's move to number 2, Philip Lindsay versus Royce Freeman. This is kind of an interesting situation.
Okay.
I don't think there's a lot of people that believe Philip Lindsay's going to lose this job. Do you?
No.
Before the season?
No.
So Rolls-Royce is feeling pretty good right now. Coming off his 50-yard run. They like him a lot, and they want to utilize him. Here's the thing, and I've talked about Lindsay before. I did a video 2 weeks ago or whatever on Philip Lindsay, and I talked about him last week about how he is one of these guys that you should avoid drafting. Mm-hmm. Purely because of the fact that it's going to be an RBBC. Like, they don't run the ball nearly as much as the Seahawks do. So the Seahawks are like the one exception to the RBBC rule. Like, if you see RBBC or you see like split snaps, run.
Yeah.
Go turn in the opposite direction and do not draft. People are going to draft Philip Lindsay in the 5th, 6th round. I was talking to somebody in our league. Mm-hmm. 2 people in our league, and I said something about Philip Lindsay and how he's one of my busts, and they were like, "What? You're an idiot." There are going to be people that draft this guy in the 4th or 5th round because they're so freaking hype about Philip Lindsay.
Well, I mean, he had such a good year last year.
So, but they don't even look at the numbers. He had a good year and he was highly efficient, but he was like RB13. Like, why are we acting like he was an RB1 that like a top 10 running back that dominated all year? Like, he wasn't. Yeah. He was a solid like player for your fantasy team, and like I think, and what the fact that they changed coaching staffs is the biggest thing for me.
That is big.
They moved in. They brought in a new coaching staff, and now Philip Lindsay's got to re-earn this job. And they like Royce Freeman, the 3rd round pick. They look at Philip Lindsay right now. The NFL is cutthroat. They look at Philip Lindsay right now as the undrafted rookie that came in last year. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, they see what he did. They're like, okay, he's good, so he does get a little more than that. But they're going, Royce Freeman was a 3rd round pick. Philip Lindsay was undrafted. What's the difference here? You know what I'm saying? And I think Royce Freeman can be a workhorse in the NFL. Whether the Denver Broncos ever utilize him like that is a complete other situation. So, to answer the questions, I think Philip Lindsay's going to win the job.
Yeah.
And I think Royce Freeman should have the job.
That's biggest surprise of 2019 right there.
Rolls-Royce is my man's.
This might surprise you. I think Philip Lindsay will get the job.
Yep.
I think he should have the job. At least to start the season. You know why? Because you're making this face to me.
Gross.
Listen, you guys should go check it out. I wrote an article about fantasy busts, and hint, hint, Philip Lindsay was on the list.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. But look, the reason why I say Philip Lindsay should start over Royce Freeman was just because of the very good year he did have last year.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he averaged, I forget the number exactly. I think it was it 5.3 yards per carry last year?
Yes.
Yeah. I could be wrong, but it was like 5.2.
I think it was 5.6.
Was it really?
Yeah, something ridiculous.
It's 5 point, like...
I can look at... 5.4. Forgive me.
It is 5.4.
Yeah, so you're good. You were right. I had numbers right in front of me, like, I'm a fool.
Yeah, but so he had a fantastic year last year. To me, he should start the year as the starter.
Oh, yeah.
Because
like,
of the...
as a veteran nod, like a...
Well,
okay,
not even
won the
that,
job.
but yeah, I mean, well, kind of, because he had such a good last year.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve to lose the job just because they have a new coaching staff. I think long term, Royce Freeman is probably better suited than Philip Lindsay.
Yeah.
But at least to start the season, Lindsay should be the starter.
I think
they're going to split, though, to be honest with you, for a little bit.
The coaching staff has talked about how they want to utilize Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman. I don't know if I said this earlier, but Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman, similar to how Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman were used in Atlanta.
I could see that.
And I don't know which back Philip Lindsay would be.
Probably.
I don't make direct comparisons to those guys at all because Philip Lindsay's not a great pass-catching back. But Devonta Freeman is, so I would say he's like more of the Tevin Coleman role.
But they would probably try to... I mean,
I don't know.
Going by that, they would...
But here's the thing, is that last year, right? Last year, Philip Lindsay had 1,000 yards, 35 receptions, 241 yards, so 1,200 all-purpose yards and 10 touchdowns. RB2, high-end RB2 performance, right?
Pretty good.
So it was pretty good. Royce Freeman, I'm not even going to talk about his numbers.
Because they weren't that good.
They weren't. It wasn't that they were not good. It was that Philip Lindsay was playing out of his mind, so they just went with Philip Lindsay. In games
he didn't have a lot of opportunity last year.
In games that Royce Freeman played, he was actually relatively decent. Last year, he had 521 yards, 4 yards a carry. He was just more of like that grinder back. 14 receptions. 10 of those receptions came in the last game of the season.
Yeah, 10 catches the last game.
10 targets, 10 catches.
Wow.
It's freaking ridiculous. 5 touchdowns. So my thing is that this is going to be split, and this is you should be, if I'm being an honest fantasy analyst and advisor to you people,
And not a fan.
If I'm advising the fantasy champs, I would say to draft neither.
I agree with that.
Like, if you want to take a flyer on a guy in case
if you want to draft
Lindsay's wrist.
Yeah.
Okay, if you had to, somebody was holding a knife to your neck and you had to, pick one guy, who would you take?
Like, to draft?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the round. Because if Philip Lindsay's going in the 5th round...
Yeah, see, you copped out. You're dead now.
Oh, well,
Guy
you
cut
can't...
your head off.
If you're just telling me, like...
Choose a running back!
If I can just, like, pick magically, I'd pick Lindsay because...
All right, at their value right now, at the ADP, who would you rather have?
I gotta pull up the ADP.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Of course, my phone decides not to work when situations
usually
come up like this. Okay, so Philip Lindsay is currently going 5th round, middle of the 5th.
Yep.
Royce Freeman is going
9th.
10th. I'm taking Royce Freeman.
Yeah, I would take Royce Freeman too. Just as if you had to take one.
Yeah.
I think I like...
Just because the value.
I like the value and the upside of Royce Freeman. Like, yeah. I'm not saying, like... For me, I'm saying stay away from Philip Lindsay. For Royce Freeman, the reason why I'm a little less... Because I love Royce. But the reason why I'm a little less, like... likely to say don't draft Royce Freeman is because of the 10th round value. Like, what's in the 10th round? Are you going to go out and, like... There's not
a lot.
Right. So if you need a running back and you need some depth at the position, Royce Freeman would be the guy to go. It's a deeper play. But I think it's dangerous.
I will say, though, like...
To me, even Royce Freeman's getting drafted a little too high.
He is.
For what is expected out of Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman. Like, I'm not sure this is a great situation.
What I will say about Philip Lindsay, though, is at the time, like a few months ago, he was being talked about as like a late 3rd, early 4th round pick, and that was insane. That was like biggest bust of the year. Like, I was
Philip Lindsay.
Yeah, I was really stay away from him. He has fallen a bit. If he keeps like falling, and if you're in a draft with guys that also don't like Philip Lindsay, don't let him slide too far, because the upside of him having the year he did, or the chances of him having the year he did last year, aren't high.
Right.
But I think it's enough for you to draft him if he falls, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like, if he's getting drafted if he falls to you in the 7th round, I'd absolutely take him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me...
Heck, even, like, late 6th.
That's one thing. I'll just relay this. We do have to move on, but I'll relay this to our audience, that there is nobody that should be fully undraftable.
Right, yeah,
like,
true.
Unless you are, like, for me, Eric Ebron is fully undraftable.
Wow.
Like, when I say do not draft these
guys... I'm surprised you
didn't
say Patrick Mahomes.
When we say do not draft these guys, or these guys are going to be busts,
yeah,
like, there's a specific value that, like, for me, I think Philip Lindsay is going to be a bust. But what round would you take him in? Right now, 5th round, too much. 6th round, too much. 7th round, maybe. 8th round, I'm on fire. Like, I'll take him. But, like, and that to me is just my value of Philip Lindsay. But it just has to come down to, like, if you're sitting there and somebody fell 2 rounds, like, why would you not take a guy that you don't like just because you don't like them?
I've seen drafts, too, where that happens and people will pass on them and, like, keep passing on the guy. And they'll just be like, oh, well, I just passed on because everybody else did, so there must be something wrong with him. It's like, well, maybe the other people aren't paying attention.
Yeah, that's like...
That's not always the case,
illogical. But... let's move on to our next grouping. Jordan Howard versus Miles Sanders. Give me your thoughts.
This is actually a position battle that I'm very interested in. I didn't watch... I told this to you earlier, I didn't watch any of the first preseason game, and you said Miles Sanders looked bad.
He did not look very good. The Miles Sanders truthers went back into the closet.
That's tough because I'm kind of rooting for Miles Sanders. I wouldn't call myself a truther of him, but I just think if he wins the job, his upside in fantasy will be higher than Jordan Howard's. Meaning if Jordan Howard is the starter, like he's only going to beat Jordan Howard. Like there's a certain ceiling with him. If Miles Sanders is the starter, we've never seen him. He's a rookie. Like let's see what this kid's got type of thing. So I think his ceiling would be higher. It is an interesting battle. To me, I think the guy who should be starting is Jordan Howard, though, at least to start the year, because sort of what I just said of Miles Sanders is a rookie. We've never seen him, so it should be Jordan Howard, the leader, the kind of veteran guy.
It would have to be a lot for him to lose that.
Yeah, Miles Sanders would have to have an incredible camp and be like, wow, this kid's the real deal. We have to start this kid for Jordan Howard to lose the job like that. So to me, I think Jordan Howard will get it, and I think he should get it.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say. I want to start off with this. Going back to July 1st. This is the news between both, just about both of these players. I want to go through. July 1st, Eagles coach Deuce Staley is pleased with the performance of newcomers Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard. The Phillies' voice, Jimmy Kempski, believes Jordan Howard will get, quote, lion's share of Eagles' short yardage work. That was on July 9th.
Okay.
July 29th, reports are that Jordan Howard has been dominating carries in the first-team offense at Eagles camp. August 5th, speaking Monday, Eagles offensive coordinator Mike Graw praised Jordan Howard's work in the passing game, particularly his pass catch protection. Assistant coach Eagles offensive coordinator Mike Graw said Jordan Howard caught the ball well this offseason program, and they're also talking about having a committee approach in the backfield. So there is love for Jordan Howard here. There's love for Miles Sanders here. There's talk of a committee backfield. Yeah. There's talks of Jordan Howard catching the football. I'm like, this backfield is an absolute disaster. Fantasy-wise. Now, to answer my own question, I would take Miles Sanders as a starter this year. I would take Miles Sanders as a starter in the future. I would take Miles Sanders over Jordan Howard all day.
You would?
Unfortunately, that's not going to happen.
Okay.
I think this is what's going to happen with the Eagles' backfield this year. You can call it a bold prediction or whatever. Jordan Howard's going to blow. He's going to get 3.5 yards a carry.
Okay.
I hope Jordan Howard plays well because I do like him, and I think he's worth a draft pick this year just as like a...
I do too, especially where he's going.
But I would say that Jordan Howard's going to start the year.
I agree with you on that.
I think he's going to play 4 weeks, and then slowly Miles Sanders is going to take that job. And then by end of November, early December, it'll be Miles Sanders' job. That's kind of where I think it's going to go. And Jordan Howard will be the third down.
I think that's where I feel like it is going to end up, where Howard's kind of a goal line back, the sort of like maybe like the C.J. Anderson to Kerryon Johnson what the Lions should do this year type thing.
Right.
I think that's where it'll eventually go. I kind of agree with you though that I don't think that's where it's going to start.
I was thinking about Jordan Howard the other day.
Miles Sanders would have to really win the job.
Right.
He has to be really good.
I'm not going to judge Miles Sanders. He did not look good in the preseason, but I'm not going to judge Miles Sanders by 3 carries in the preseason. Yeah, that's stupid. So I was scouting out Jordan Howard a week and a half ago because there are all these reports about him looking good in the as a pass catching back, and that he's going to get the main share of the carries and all that stuff. So the committee stuff was said back in early June. And so as the training camp and OTAs and all that stuff have proceeded, Jordan Howard has been kind of established as that number 1 back for Philly at this point.
Yeah.
Now, I looked at Jordan Howard's numbers from the Chicago Bears days, and in Matt Nagy's offense, he was bad. Like the year before and the 2 years before that when who's the coach before Matt Nagy? Don't remember. But the previous coach and the previous coaching staff got him enough carries, same amount that he had last year, to the point where he was an RB9 and an RB10 in previous years. Last year, he was the RB20 in fantasy football. He had 270 touches, which is, workhorse.
That's good.
That's workhorse in Chicago. So I don't think he worked in Matt Nagy's system. Some guys just don't work in certain systems, and I don't think he worked in Matt Nagy's system.
The Bears' system is very
he's his style of
a lot
running,
of movement.
Yeah,
it's similar to the Chiefs.
Whereas he was hand it off to him 250 times.
Right. He's more of
I also don't think the Bears' offensive line was that great last year. People
weren't
really like that offensive line. I was like, okay. This year I think it's going to be better. I think everyone's like, oh, what you're David Montgomery truth, or what do you think he's all going to be good? And no, I think David Montgomery is a better running back than Jordan Howard. So yes, I think he's going to be good. I think Jordan Howard needs the right system and a good offensive line and a good offense, and that's exactly what he's getting in Philadelphia. So I think he has an opportunity to succeed. 4.1 yards a carry instead of the abysmal 3.7 he had last year would get him to 1,200 rushing yards and maybe 10 touchdowns. And what does that do for you? That's Philip Lindsay numbers.
Yeah, we're just 13th.
So, and I think what round is he going in? 10th, 11th?
10th, yeah.
So Jordan Howard is a great value here. Miles Sanders, however, he's going in the 9th round, right? 9th or 10th? Right, he's going at the same pick.
As of today, he's actually going in the 8th round. He's going a whole round ahead of him.
I would take Jordan Howard over Miles Sanders at this point in drafts just because
the ADP.
Just because the ADP. Now, here's what you do. This is being wise. Take the risk on Jordan Howard. Hope he plays well. If he doesn't, and Miles Sanders steals the job, it's going to be so deep into the season that whoever had him, this is going to be like you last year when you drafted Nick Chubb, and then Nick Chubb
and then I cut him.
Got the job week 7 or 8, and I picked him up. And if that happens here, there could be a real value here. But let somebody else take Miles Sanders, and then let their team get squeezed a little bit.
Have you thought of drafting both guys at that point in the draft?
I have, but I think it's putting too much capital in the Philly backfield, which isn't that valuable anyway.
Yeah.
When they had Jay Ajayi, he wasn't
right
that good. So
and the chances of them splitting carries are high.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, you have two guys that become less valuable.
Right.
So,
yeah. Let's move on to the 3 wide receivers. We got to talk a little faster about these, even though they're really good.
It's okay. The receivers are...
Yeah. So I asked this question on Instagram earlier 2 weeks ago, and I said Geronimo Allison versus Marquez Valdes-Scantling. That's a number 4 pairing. They're both fighting for reps from Mr. Aaron Rodgers, and they're both fighting for the number 2 spot. From what I've been hearing is that Marquez Valdes-Scantling is winning the job right now, and Geronimo Allison is going to be the 3.
Okay.
I like Valdes-Scantling a lot more than I do Geronimo Allison, but honest to God, either could break out at this point. I don't really know. If you had to choose one, who are you choosing?
This one is tough again because I think it's one of those battles that you have to see develop over preseason. Either of those guys could take the numbers 2 spot in that Packers offense, and it's a valuable battle because whoever does, if Aaron Rodgers has a bounce back season, they're going to be very valuable. To me, I'm probably going with, I want to say Geronimo Allison, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go with Scantling there. I just think he's probably the little bit I saw last year out of him, he looked really solid and really talented.
Yeah.
And he showed flashes of being a guy who's he looked like he could be a prototypical WR1, WR2 on an NFL team.
Mm-hmm.
So if he can just kind of reach that ceiling, I mean, both guys I think have a good opportunity to get there, but I would go with Scantling just because of the little bit I saw last year.
Yeah.
But again, it's really close between those guys, and either one of them can get it.
So there's been a lot of good reports surrounding Geronimo Allison recently. Geronimo Allison confirmed that his main focus this season is going to be in the slot, which is similar to how Marquez Valdes-Scantling was going to be utilized.
Yeah.
I see Marquez Valdes-Scantling more like a Devontae Adams, and not in terms of talent or
ability. What about a Jordy Nelson?
What, for Geronimo Allison?
No, for
Marquez Valdes-Scantling?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. He's going to play the outside. He's going to be I believe it's called a flanker, but Devontae Adams does believe Geronimo Allison will be, quote, dangerous in the new offense, so that's something to keep an eye on. I like Marquez Valdes-Scantling over Geronimo Allison just because, here's why. I think actually Geronimo Allison in a couple of years might be better than Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
Both guys are very good.
And to answer the question, I would take Geronimo Allison as the 2 and Marquez Valdes-Scantling as the guy I would like to have the 2.
Okay.
But I think as far as Marquez Valdes, like every year there's 2 or 3 wide receivers that start the year as wide receiver 3s on the depth chart, and then they ascend into a wide receiver, the second wide receiver or the first wide receiver on the team.
Yeah.
I think Marquez Valdes-Scantling is going to start the year as the 3rd guy, and I think he's going to ascend into that second spot behind Adams.
I could totally see that too.
Geronimo Allison is going to be utilized. He's a good route runner. He's going to be utilized in the slot a lot. But I don't know. I mean, it's hard to choose between two guys. I like Marquez Valdes-Scantling better than Geronimo Allison, but Geronimo Allison's like the wise choice.
He is.
And I want to go. So here's what I go to. I go to the ADP.
I was just going to say, you know what I would do in this situation?
Draft Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
People right now are picking sides with this.
Yeah.
They're going one way or they're going the other. They're saying you got to draft this guy or you got to draft this guy. If I'm sitting in the draft, I'm waiting for one of them to get picked, and I'll take the other
guy. Yeah,
and I'll wait.
So right now, do you know where Marquez Valdes-Scantling is going? I believe Geronimo Allison is going in the 10th or 11th round, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling is going in like the 13th or 14th, but I could be very wrong.
Geronimo Allison currently, they're both going in the 10th round.
10th round?
Both of them, yeah.
Interesting.
Geronimo Allison is right now 3 picks ahead of Scantling.
So basically, both are overvalued.
Yeah, pretty much.
I would, if you put me on the board and those 2 guys are at wide receiver, I'm not sure. I think I would take Allison at this point
would
just
too.
because he's the favorite to win the 2 job. But I think you have a good chance of a similar situation to the previous guys we were talking about. You know, I think somebody's going to draft Scantling, and they're going to be like, he's not that great.
Yeah.
You know, because there are the people who owned Marquez Valdes-Scantling last year, and they're the people who owned Geronimo Allison last year. And because of the injuries in that offense between the 2 guys, nobody ever played at the same time.
No.
So everyone's seen the good side of them, but no one's seen them all together. So I think that Marquez Valdes-Scantling can be good if Geronimo Allison is good? No. And you could flip it. You could flip it to the other way too, but it's going to be one or the other. And so it just.
Well, what if you're
sitting there going, okay, which one am I going to take? I would just take Geronimo Allison.
There's a small chance that all 3 of them actually are
work out,
including Devontae Adams.
Yeah,
I threw him in there, but like those 3 receivers do good because
right.
we have seen it. Like Houston last year for time had 3 really good fantasy wide receivers.
Yeah.
Same with the Rams. So
right.
And with new Aaron Rodgers and new Matt LaFleur Packers offense, could be possible.
It could be possible,
but unlikely.
I've just never seen anything from the Matt LaFleur.
I know. I'm saying that to like
with a good quarterback. Like I've just never.
Even when he had
Corey Davis couldn't even get like 100
so.
targets last year. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens. It's more of it's Aaron Rodgers' system, not Matt LaFleur's.
It really is. It's
Let's move on to number 5, James Washington and Donta Moncrief. Let me go off for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, probably not. But I've loved James Washington for a while.
Yes.
They drafted him to be the Antonio Brown replacement.
Yeah.
Initially. And so when I initially started looking at James Washington numbers earlier this offseason, obviously he's not that impressive, but his breakout age, the 2 things that you need to look at on Player Profiler for wide receivers are college dominator and breakout age. He broke out in college his first year at 18.4, which is 98th percentile, which is spectacular. And his college dominator was 33.3, which is 62nd percentile. He was drafted as the 28th pick in the 2nd round. I think it was 2 years ago, I believe. His player comp is DeAndre Hopkins, and people have said that they drafted him to be the new Antonio Brown when they got him. They got him in the same draft as Juju, I believe. Obviously, we know Juju busted out, and he's really good. James Washington is one of those guys that you look at. I don't know if Juju was in the same draft. I don't believe that was true. But when you look at James Washington, to me, I really like James Washington. I really do. And I think he could come in and play the Juju role that Juju played last year. Maybe a little bit reduced, but be a wide receiver too. Like I see that in James Washington. And have the potential that if he's talented enough, he can break out. But there's one man stopping that from happening, and it's Donta Moncrief. Moncrief right now is projected to get the number 2 spot on the roster, and he is also a talented receiver. His breakout age was 18.1. He's 26 years old. He has 100 percentile breakout age, and his college dominator was the 58th percentile. So they're basically the same player. The problem with Donta Moncrief is that he's been in teams with really good quarterbacks and done absolutely nothing.
Except for last year's with Jacksonville. So...
yeah,
but he has been with like the Colts and Andrew Luck and has done nothing.
Like Moncrief's player comp is Andre Johnson from back in the day.
Well, Andre Johnson was a baller though.
Yeah, but and then that's like, for me, I like Moncrief, I really do, and like for me right now, it's getting real hard to choose between the two. This is
another really good one, but I'm gonna go with James Washington as the guy that I think will start, but I think
should start.
I think. I think Washington should start. I think Moncrief will start.
Yeah.
Moncrief has kind of been around more. He's sort of further along in his development as a receiver. He's also
having a better camp in preseason right now.
Yeah.
Except for James Washington.
I saw reports from a Steelers beat writer yesterday that James Washington, the headline actually for SB Nation, which covers like all the sports for at pretty much every sport around every town, and they have like their own town. So one of the Steelers guys wrote an article about James Washington. He said he looked like a man amongst boys in the preseason game and had a really, really good preseason game. It was essentially saying how he's expected to take this big leap. He was a second-round pick last year. I mean, there's a lot of things going for James Washington.
It's a second, third year in the league.
It is, which is typically, we've talked about this before.
Breakout year.
Yep, the big year for wide receivers is that second, third year.
And the amount I've come to realize that the Steelers don't throw it that much, but the amount that they utilize...
They still throw it more than a lot of other teams.
The amount that they utilize their 1 and 2 wide receivers is absolutely crazy.
It is.
And I think that even if, like last year, I believe Juju was targeted more than Antonio Brown was.
It was close. I think you might be right, actually.
It was very close. And I when I look at it, I think James Washington...
But they were both targeted an insane amount.
Right. So I think James Washington... I think you're... Don't get me going, bro. Continue.
Dude, they are going to throw it a lot. And this also opens up a big opportunity for James Washington. I mean, let's look at it, as you said, when they had Antonio Brown... And I don't remember who their number 2 receiver was at the time. I think it might have been Martavis Bryant. Yeah.
When he was on the field, they targeted him a lot.
Right. And then when Juju came, it was like this huge thing. And we saw how much, as you were just saying, they threw the ball a lot to Juju and Antonio Brown, those 1-2 guys. Antonio Brown's not there. Right now, Donta Moncrief, this is his first year with the Steelers.
Juju's not. I can't see Juju increasing target share either. So you have 170 targets just freed up.
And
that's why Vance McDonald...
I don't think they're going to throw it as much
whoever gets the
this
number
year,
2.
but they're still going to throw it a lot. But you're right. Vance McDonald's going to be involved a lot. But that, like you said, it opens up a lot of targets, and Big Ben doesn't trust Donta Moncrief yet. It's his first year at Pittsburgh. The guy he really trusts is Juju. That gives an opportunity for Washington to really step up and be that number 2 guy.
Yeah. I certainly hope he is. I would say I want James Washington to be the guy. It's gonna be Donta Moncrief for now. Like I said, I think James Washington is about to break out, about to have a really good season. We have to move on. You know what? For 1 second, what's the ADP of James Washington?
It was 13th round, but I can check the exact.
And what's the ADP for Donta Moncrief? I believe it's 11th right now.
Yep, it's 13th round for James Washington and 11th for Donta Moncrief.
I would take both.
Oh. You know what? That is a very underrated play.
My plan right now is to not take a kicker or a defense in the draft, and just draft as many players as I can get, and then figure it out later. Because I'm gonna drop the kicker and defense anyway. Might as well have the guy on my team.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't drop. Like usually, whoever I draft the kicker, I just keep the whole season unless they're like really really bad.
Yeah,
I don't even like.
It's not even worth it. But anyway, I might draft both.
Yeah.
If I was only allowed to choose one right now, I would probably take James Washington, because when you're getting that late, you're taking the sleeper. You're taking the guy that you believe is going to be
the sweet round.
Like, why waste your time on Donta Moncrief? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think James Washington's going to be a wide receiver too next year. That's a bold prediction, but I think that's what's going to happen.
That is a bold prediction.
Let's move on to our next one and final one to conclude the show. Now that we're going on an hour, if you're listening this long, we love you. Kiki QT versus Will Fuller. I'm going to answer the question up front, and I'm going to say I would have Will Fuller as the number 2, and I would take Will Fuller as the number 2. I like Kiki Kuti. I think he's a good wide receiver. He's very young. He has the chance. I think a lot of people like him because they're like, okay, he's in his second, third year. Mm-hmm. He can have a breakout season. He can be the Tyler Boyd of this year that comes as the wide receiver 3 and breaks. I just don't see it happening. I just can't. It is not, for me, it's not possible. Now, I want to pull up some Will Fuller stats for you.
Will Fuller is extremely underrated.
He's so underrated. It's crazy.
Here's what I'll say.
How much he's underrated.
I'd pick Will Fuller. I think Will Fuller should, and he will. But what I will say is I think Will Fuller's been hurt every year of his career.
Yeah.
So the chances of Will Fuller staying as the number 2 wide receiver isn't insanely likely. But if they all are healthy for the whole season, I think Will Fuller will and should be the number 2 receiver on the team. He is very underrated.
So do you want to know where he landed in half PPR settings through weeks 2 through 8 last year? I'm trying to find his freaking name. He was the wide receiver 13 through weeks 2 through 8. Weeks 2 through 7, he jumps up even further and lands in the top 10. So for me,
when he's out there, he is like a top 15
week 2 when he first played his first game, 25 fantasy points. Week 3, 21 fantasy points. These are with DeAndre Hopkins on the field, which is absolutely insane. Week 4, he played Indy and he had 15 fantasy points, and then he had a 3-point game against Dallas and a 5-point game against Buffalo, and then he came back 12 points against Jacksonville and 23 points against Miami. So when he's playing on the field, he's pretty good. Yeah. He gets a good and a healthy number of targets. There is no way in my mind that Kiki Kuti can overtake Will Fuller.
No.
And become an effective. My thing is that if it was just Will Fuller and Kiki Kuti, if it was just those two guys,
they'd both be fantastic.
They would both be fantastic. But you have DeAndre Hopkins. And when you have DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller, who are both efficient, Kiki Kuti becomes less valuable. Now, there is the other side of this, that I'm assuming that Will Fuller plays the whole season. That's not going to happen. Will Fuller will probably get hurt at some point. So when that happens, Kiki Kuti is going to be in the wings, and I think...
And Kiki's a very good receiver.
He's a very good receiver. So I think he can...
Houston's in a great spot.
Oh, 3 wide receivers? Yeah, go for it. But I think if Will Fuller plays a full season, he can be a wide receiver too, and a lot of people are putting him to the side. Like when I looked at his numbers, I was like, "Huh?
Yeah, it's
where
good.
does this guy come from? What's his ADP right now?"
It's actually a lot higher than I thought it was.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Dang it, you people!
People are on this train before us, dude.
Yeah, that's
true. It's first pick of the 9th round.
Oh, Will Fuller?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say like 7th. I'm on board with that.
I thought he was gonna be like 10th or 11th.
No, Kiki Kuti's that 10th or 11th guy. So
Kiki,
out of all the guys that we've talked about on this podcast today, I think Kiki's a 13th rounder, 12th rounder. So I think for me, I would this is where a lot of these guys, when you talk about Phillip Lindsay versus Royce Freeman, like we talked about. Like I would take, Royce Freeman just because the value is better for him than it is for Phillip Lindsay.
Right.
Or we talked about that with not with Jordan Howard, with Rashad Penny and Chris Carson. For me, Kiki Kuti and Will Fuller, I would take Will Fuller because the value for Will Fuller as probably the 30-something-th wide receiver off the board, and the ability to finish as a high-end wide receiver too if he's on the field for the whole season. Like mid-range wide receiver too is probably a safer bet. But I like him better than I like Kiki Kuti. And to be honest with you, we talked about the wide receivers, Geronimo Morales and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, James Washington and Donta Moncrief. For none of those guys I would draft, James Washington, Donta Moncrief, maybe I would draft both of them. But Kiki Kuti and Will Fuller, I would definitely draft both.
Oh, yeah, I would too. If you put a gun to my head, though, I'd probably take Kiki because...
Kiki, do you love me?
Just because I think that Will Fuller will get hurt.
Oh, yeah.
So to me, drafting Kiki in the 12th round right now, which is pretty good for a guy who will probably be the WR2 on a team that throws the ball a lot for at least half the season when Will Fuller gets hurt.
Yeah.
But if I know, if I can see the future and see that Will Fuller plays a full season, I'd take him in the 6th, 7th round.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That'll do it for the position battles episode. It was a little bit longer. An hour and 10 or something like that. Be sure to listen on Thursday as we discuss late round players you should target in 2019 drafts. This will make or break your season. These late rounds, a lot of people overlook them. Oh, I heard the other day, somebody said, "Oh, the only thing that matters is the first 5 rounds." Oh, really?
Oh, that is.
Oh, really?
Tell that to me last year.
Yeah. You got any closing thoughts for us, boss?
I think I talked myself into James Washington.
He's
so
like on
much.
board. He's like, I wasn't gonna draft him, but now
I literally I was like, James Washington, whatever. But now I was thinking about it. I'm in on James Washington, bro.
Don't forget to check out the website, thefantasychampions.com, guys, for all the latest content. Talk to you Thursday, Fantasy Champs.
Peace out.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.